The galactic disrespect. The Xyric Dominion had ruled the stars for centuries. They were an empire of cold logic and brutal efficiency, expanding their reach through diplomacy when it suited them, and war when it did not. To them, humanity was nothing more than an upstart species, barely out of its own solar system, still clinging to the idea that it had a place among the stars. The Galactic Council had long debated Earth's request for equal status. Humanity had made its case: advancements in space travel, contributions to trade, and a growing influence in interstellar affairs. But the Xyric, along with several other older races, always voted against them. They are primitives, one Xyric ambassador had sneered at the last meeting. Their world is nothing more than a speck in the void, and they think they deserve a seat among us. Let them serve, let them trade, but they will never be our equals. The humans protested. They reminded the Council of their technological leaps, their victories against pirate fleets, their growing colonies. But the Xyric laughed. And then they crossed the line. The colony incident. Without warning, a Xyric fleet entered the Epsilon Eridani system, one of Earth's first major off-world colonies. They claimed they were there to secure trade routes, but in reality, it was a power play. They landed troops, seized infrastructure, and declared the colony to be under Xyric protection. To the Xyric, it was a simple move. Earth had no major military presence in the system. No one had seen a human warship in months. The Dominion assumed the humans had no way to fight back. They'd broadcasted a message across the sector. This colony now belongs to the Xyric Dominion. Your people may stay, but your leadership will surrender control immediately. Any resistance will be met with force. It was a declaration of dominance, a message to humanity and the rest of the galaxy. Earth did not respond. The silence, the lack of reaction puzzled the other species in the Council. Usually, humans were quick to send angry diplomats, fiery speeches, or desperate pleas for negotiations. But this time, there was nothing. No protests, no threats, no warships. The Xyric saw this silence as a sign of weakness. They laughed in their war chambers, celebrating their easy victory over the so-called rising power of the humans. They were never a threat, one Xyric general said. They were always just noise. They failed to notice the silence was not weakness. It was something far more dangerous. A final warning. Days later, a single human diplomat, Ambassador Daniel Reeves, arrived at the Galactic Council. He stood before the Xyric representatives, his face calm, his voice steady. "You have taken what is not yours," Reeves said. "You have crossed a line. Release our people. Withdraw your forces. This is your only warning." The Xyric representatives smirked. One of them, an elder diplomat with gray, reptilian skin, leaned forward. "And if we don't?" he asked mockingly. Reeves met his gaze, unblinking. "Then you will face consequences beyond your imagination." The room erupted in laughter. Other alien delegates whispered among themselves. Humanity had no fleet, no major military presence, no history of winning against a galactic power. The Xyric leaned back in their seats, grinning. "Then we shall see," one of them said. The mistake. That was the last meeting Reeves attended. The Xyric were too busy gloating to realize what they had done. For the first time in history, they had given humanity a reason to stop holding back. They thought Earth's silence was surrender. It wasn't. It was preparation. Because Earth had been waiting for this moment for a very, very long time. A warning ignored. The Xyric Dominion sat comfortably in their war chambers, surrounded by holographic maps of their growing empire. They had seized entire star systems before, breaking weaker civilizations and bending them to their will. Earth, they believed, was no different. The human ambassador's warning had been amusing at best. What consequences could these upstarts possibly bring? Humanity had no recorded fleet capable of standing against a galactic power, no war record that could compare to the Dominion's centuries of conquest. So, the Xyric laughed. and then they silenced all human transmissions. A simple show of power. No negotiations, no further discussions, just an iron wall between Earth and its colony. It was a mistake. The sudden shift. The silence from Earth stretched on. No desperate messages, no diplomatic envoys begging for peace. It was unsettling. The Zyrek High Command ordered a full scan of the Sol system. They expected to see panic. They expected to find a desperate planet scrambling for help. Instead, they saw nothing. Earth was quiet, too quiet. There were no civilian evacuations, no emergency meetings among human colonies, no visible fleet movements. It was as if the species had simply accepted their fate, but something about it felt wrong. A low-ranking Zyrek intelligence officer studied the sensor reports. He noticed an anomaly, something strange just beyond Jupiter's orbit. The readings were inconsistent, fluctuating between deep space debris and large unknown masses. He flagged it as a potential stealth signature. His superiors ignored the report. Earth was weak, they reminded him. Humanity had no stealth fleets, no technology capable of hiding entire warships. You are paranoid, they told him. The humans are doing what they always do, talking big and waiting for someone to save them. The young officer hesitated, then deleted the report. He would regret that decision for the rest of his life. The deadline arrives. 1 week after the Zyrek occupation of Epsilon Eridani, the human deadline passed. The Zyrek fleet stationed above the colony received a single tight beam transmission, a simple text message sent in perfect Zyrek script. Time's up. Confused, the Zyrek officers scanned the system again. No human ships, no distress calls, nothing. They laughed, and then the stars went dark. The shadows in space. At first, it looked like an error in their visual sensors. Then it became clear something massive was moving in space, something big enough to block starlight. Then, the Zyrek fleet's primary battleship received an incoming transmission. For the first time in recorded history, a human voice spoke in the Zyrek war language. Your mistake, the voice said, was thinking we were never ready. Then the sky burned. The unveiling of the hidden armada. Thousands of human warships decloaked at once. Sleek black vessels emerged from the void, their hulls absorbing and distorting light. They had been hidden in the asteroid fields, behind gas giants, inside dead zones where sensors could not detect them. These were not outdated civilian ships or crude military prototypes. These were warships, built in secret, perfected in silence. For decades, Earth had played weak. They had let the galaxy believe they were nothing more than traders and explorers, all while they built an armada beyond anything the Zyrek could comprehend. And now, that armada had come for them. The first strike. Before the Zyrek could react, the first barrage hit. A wave of plasma torpedoes struck their battleships, bypassing their shields with precision targeting. Massive Zyrek carriers, once symbols of their dominance, erupted into fireballs. Their escort ships scattered, struggling to adjust to the sudden attack. The Zyrek High Commander barely had time to issue orders before his own vessel was torn apart. The humans had not come to fight a battle. They had come to end the war before it even started. The hidden armada awakens. The Zyrek fleet had never known fear. For centuries, they had been the masters of war, crushing civilizations, annexing entire star systems, and rewriting the rules of galactic power. No species had ever dared to challenge them on equal footing. Until now. Until humanity. The void of space, once calm and still, had transformed into a storm of fire and destruction. Earth's hidden fleet had emerged from the darkness, and in mere seconds, the Zyrek commanders realized the unthinkable. They were losing. The impossible battle. Zyrek ships scrambled into defensive formations, but it was already too late. Human warships, sleek and terrifying, moved like hunters, their engines silent, their hulls coated in stealth materials that confused enemy targeting systems. Each ship was a predator, striking with precision and vanishing before retaliation. The Zyrek's mighty battleships, once thought invincible, became floating wrecks in minutes. Explosions rippled through the void, consuming their once mighty armada in brilliant fireballs. One Zyrek captain, Commander Xalroth, watched in horror as the battle turned into a massacre. His fleet had outnumbered the humans 3-1, yet they were being destroyed like helpless prey. His hands trembled as he transmitted a desperate order. "Fall back. All ships retreat. Get to warp." But no one responded, because no one was left. The iron grip of Earth. For years, the Zyrek had believed Earth's silence was weakness, but it had been patience. Humanity had been watching, studying, preparing. They had let the Zyrek think they were weak. They had let them believe that humans lacked power. And when the Zyrek finally struck, when they crossed the line, Earth had simply closed its fist. Now, the Zyrek were learning the most terrifying truth in the galaxy. Humans didn't fight fair. They didn't fight for honor. They fought to win. The death of a dominion. Aboard the Zyrek's command dreadnought, High Admiral Vorlex struggled to comprehend the chaos around him. His people had conquered dozens of species. They had enslaved millions. Yet now, his empire was being torn apart by a species they had mocked as primitives. A warning flashed across his console. Multiple human warships approaching. No, not just warships. Dreadnoughts. Earth's heaviest, deadliest weapons of war. These ships, once hidden away in the void, were now here to finish what had been started. Vorlex clenched his fists. There had to be a way out. A surrender, a retreat, anything. But then, a transmission appeared on his screen. A human admiral, clad in a dark uniform, stared back at him, cold, unblinking. "No more warnings," the human said. "No more mercy." Then the line went dead, and Earth's fleet opened fire. The Zyrek's final moments. There was no escape. Human warships unleashed a final, devastating barrage. Hyper-accelerated railgun slugs punched through Zyrek hulls like paper. Plasma lances melted armor that had withstood centuries of warfare. The Zyrek flagship shattered, torn apart in a wave of brilliant explosions. And with that, the battle was over. The new galactic power. The galaxy had just witnessed something unthinkable. The Zyrek Dominion, once feared, had been humbled in a single engagement. Their once mighty fleet was nothing more than debris. And humanity. Humanity was no longer just another race. They were something else now. Something terrifying. Something unstoppable. For the first time in history, the galaxy understood the truth. You do not provoke Earth. Because if you do, they will make sure you never make that mistake again. The enemy's desperation. The wreckage of the Zyrek fleet drifted through space, burning and broken. The once mighty warships, symbols of an empire's power, were now nothing more than debris, shattered and lifeless. On the few surviving Zyrek vessels, panic had replaced arrogance. Their entire fleet was gone. Their commanders were dead. Their empire, one of the most feared in the galaxy, was on the verge of collapse. The desperate call for surrender. Aboard one of the last remaining Zyrek cruisers, General Xalroth gritted his teeth, his claws trembling as he sent out a transmission on all frequencies. "Humans, we request a ceasefire. We will withdraw. We will surrender this colony. There is no need for further conflict." He waited. Silence. A cold chill ran down his spine. Where was the response? The Zyrek had always dictated the terms of war. They were the ones who decided when to stop, when to negotiate. But now, with their fleet in ruins, they were no longer in control. For the first time, they were at the mercy of another species, and humanity was not responding. The Admiral's decision. High above the battlefield, aboard Earth's flagship TDS Revenant, Admiral Lucius Kane watched the transmission blink on his console. The Zyrek were surrendering, begging. He did not answer. Instead, he turned to his officers. Are the weapons primed? Yes, Admiral. Target their homeworld communications array. Fire. A moment later, a massive kinetic round was launched from one of Earth's dreadnoughts. It broke through subspace, bypassed enemy defenses, and struck the Zyrek's primary relay station on their homeworld. The message was clear. We are not here to negotiate. The fear spreads. Across the galaxy, alien nations watched in stunned silence. The Zyrek Dominion, the once undisputed military power, had never been defeated like this. This was not diplomacy. This was not a war of attrition. This was annihilation. The galactic order had been shattered in a single battle. In political chambers, alien leaders whispered among themselves, "The humans, they are not what we thought. They were hiding this power all along. If they can do this to the Zyrek, what could they do to us?" For the first time in history, the galaxy understood what humanity truly was. And it terrified them. The Zyrek's final plea. Back on the battered Zyrek homeworld, their ruling council met in secret. There was no way out. Humanity had not just defeated them, they had humiliated them. And now, Earth's fleet was moving toward their core systems. There was only one option left. The Zyrek Supreme Chancellor, once a proud leader who had laughed at the idea of humans being equals, now bowed his head in shame. We must beg for mercy. And so, for the first time in their empire's history, the Zyrek prepared to surrender. But the real question remained. Would humanity accept their surrender? Or would they do what the Zyrek had done to so many others? Would they finish the war permanently? The final blow. The Zyrek homeworld, Vora Prime, had never known true fear. For centuries, its towering spires and vast cities stood as monuments to an empire that had ruled without opposition. Its leaders had dictated terms to countless civilizations, reducing entire species to subjugation. Now, those same leaders stood in a fortified chamber, their eyes locked on a massive screen. The live feed from their orbital defense stations showed the impossible. Earth's war fleet had arrived, a fleet that wasn't supposed to exist, a fleet that shouldn't have been able to match the Zyrek's military might. But there it was, black, sleek, and unstoppable, and it was aimed directly at them. The last attempt at mercy. The Zyrek Supreme Chancellor, his scales dull with age, turned to his advisors. His voice, once filled with arrogance, now carried something alien to his people. Desperation. Open a channel. We must surrender before it's too late. His command was obeyed instantly. Across the system, Zyrek ships deactivated their weapons, signaling submission. A transmission was sent to the human flagship, a direct message to Admiral Lucius Kane. We acknowledge your victory. We surrender unconditionally. The Zyrek Dominion will withdraw from all human territories and offer reparations. We only ask that you spare our homeworld. Silence. The Zyrek leaders waited. Their claws tapped nervously against the marble floors. They had made a grave mistake underestimating humanity. But surely, now that the battle was over, the humans would accept peace. Wouldn't they? The response from Earth. Minutes passed. Then the screen flickered to life. Admiral Kane appeared, his cold, unblinking gaze piercing through the feed. Surrender, he repeated. His tone was calm, unmoved. Do you remember when we asked for peace? Kane continued. Do you remember when we told you to withdraw? When we warned you of consequences? The Zyrek Supreme Chancellor swallowed hard. He knew where this was going. But Kane wasn't finished. You laughed at us. His voice was steady, emotionless. You thought we were weak. You thought you could take what was ours and walk away. Kane leaned forward slightly. The room on Vora Prime felt smaller, as if his presence alone was pressing down on them. You were wrong. The Zyrek Chancellor took a shaky breath. We admit our mistakes, Admiral. We see now that humanity is powerful, far more than we ever imagined. That is why we ask for mercy. Kane stared at him for a long moment. Then he spoke two words. Mercy denied. The final strike. Before the Xyric leaders could respond, Earth's fleet opened fire. Thousands of orbital kinetic rods, nicknamed Earth's hammers, were released from dreadnoughts positioned above Vora Prime. These weapons required no explosives. They did not rely on energy. They were pure, unstoppable force. And they fell like meteors. In mere seconds, they broke through the planet's defenses. The Xyric homeworld, once untouchable, was now under attack in a way it had never been before. Cities shattered. Continents cracked. Firestorms swept across the land. The Xyric people, once the proud rulers of a galactic empire, could only watch as their world was reduced to ash. The end of the Xyric dominion. Admiral Kane stood aboard the TDS Revenant, watching the destruction unfold on the main display. He did not celebrate. He did not gloat. This was not revenge. This was justice. The Xyric had spent centuries subjugating weaker races. They had never shown mercy. And now, they were experiencing the fate they had forced upon others. When the bombardment ended, Vora Prime was no longer a capital world. It was a graveyard. The Xyric Dominion, once the most feared empire in the galaxy, ceased to exist. The message to the galaxy. The destruction of the Xyric was not kept secret. Every major galactic power received the broadcast. The message was simple. Earth is no longer your lesser. We do not seek war, but if you bring it to us, we will finish it. There will be no second chances. The galaxy, once filled with species that mocked and underestimated humans, now stood in terrified silence. And deep within the void, Earth's leaders knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. The new galactic order. The Xyric Dominion was no more. Vora Prime, once the beating heart of an empire, lay in ruins, a silent monument to humanity's wrath. The galaxy had watched in stunned silence as Earth's hidden fleet rose from the shadows and wiped out a civilization that had ruled for centuries. Now, the power balance had shifted. The echoes of fear, across the stars, the Council of Elders, the ruling body of the most powerful alien species, held an emergency meeting. They gathered in a massive chamber floating above the core world of Eldaris, a neutral ground for galactic diplomacy. Normally, these meetings were filled with endless debates, posturing, and veiled threats. Not today. Today, they were afraid. A towering reptilian diplomat, High Speaker Drenox, slammed his fist against the table. His species had long supported the Xyric Dominion, believing humans were nothing more than upstart traders with no real power. "We have made a mistake," he growled, his voice filled with unease. Humanity was never weak. They were never insignificant. They were simply waiting. A blue-skinned ambassador, Mira Voltanis, leaned forward, her luminous eyes filled with worry. "If they could do this to the Xyric," she said softly, "then what happens if we challenge them? What happens if they decide they want more?" No one had an answer. Because the truth was simple. The humans had hidden their strength for decades. And now, no one knew what else they were hiding. Earth's next move. On Earth, the mood was not one of celebration. There were no parades, no cheers of victory. The war had not been about conquest or pride. It had been about survival. In a secure war chamber beneath the surface of Luna Base, Earth's leaders met in secret. Admiral Lucius Kane, the architect of the Xyric's downfall, stood before a holographic display, analyzing the latest reports. Across the galaxy, other species were mobilizing their fleets, reinforcing their defenses. Earth had made its statement, but fear made people dangerous. "They will not attack us directly," said Director Evelyn Sato, head of the Terran Strategic Command, "but they will conspire. They will form alliances. They will try to contain us." Kane nodded. "Good." The room fell silent. "Good?" Sato narrowed her eyes. "You want them to fear us." Kane turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "Fear keeps them in line. The moment they think they can challenge us again, we will be forced into another war. We end that possibility before it begins. A message to the stars. The next day, a single transmission was broadcasted across the entire galaxy. Humanity's new flag, a dark blue sigil with a silver Earth surrounded by an unbroken ring, was displayed on every known channel. Then, the voice of Admiral Kane echoed across the cosmos. We are not conquerors. We do not seek war. But let it be known, Earth will never kneel. We will never beg. And we will never be your lesser. A pause. Then, the final words. The age of humanity has begun. The aftermath. The message sent a clear signal. Earth was no longer an outsider. They were now a dominant force. In the darkest corners of the galaxy, old enemies whispered of revenge. New factions emerged, some seeking alliances with Earth, others preparing for war. But one truth remained unchanged. Humanity had shattered the old order. And now, the galaxy belonged to them. The shadows in the void. The galaxy had changed. Where once the Zyric Dominion had stood as the iron fist of power, now there was only silence, only ruins. The species that had once mocked humanity now spoke of them in hushed whispers. The age of the Zyric was over. The age of humanity had begun. But in the cold depths of space, where no eyes could see, and no sensors could detect, something was watching. The gathering storm. Deep beyond the known territories, past the last mapped hyperlanes, a fleet lay hidden in the abyss. Not Zyric. Not any species from the Galactic Council. No one had spoken their name in 1,000 years. And yet, they had always been there, waiting, watching the younger species fight, rise and fall. Now, they had noticed Earth. A sleek, dark vessel floated in the void, its hull reflecting nothing, absorbing all light. Inside, a being unlike anything known in the galaxy observed the footage of Earth's war against the Zyric. It had seen the human fleet rise from the darkness. It had witnessed their ruthless efficiency. And it had listened to Admiral Kane's final message. The age of humanity has begun. The being tilted its head. There was something different about these humans, something dangerous. A cold voice echoed through the void, resonating with unseen power. They are ahead of schedule. Earth's new reality. On Earth, humanity had entered a new era. The war with the Zyric had changed everything. Trade routes had shifted. Old alliances had fractured. Some species sought to align with Earth, eager to be on the right side of history. Others, terrified by what had happened, began secret preparations for war. And then there were those who disappeared. Within weeks of humanity's victory, 3 known empires had gone dark. Entire fleets vanished. No distress calls. No debris. Just emptiness. The warning. On the bridge of the TDS Revenant, Admiral Kane stood before a newly arrived report. A scout ship, patrolling near the outer edges of Terran-controlled space, had encountered something impossible. A dead colony world. Not a Zyric world. Not a human one. But something older. The planet had been glassed. Not by orbital bombardment, but by something far worse. The air was still. The soil was burnt to nothing. There was no radiation, no signs of traditional weapons. It was as if something had erased all life with a single touch. And on a broken structure near the colony's remains, the scout team had found one final message, carved in alien script older than any known language. Translated, it read, "You are not the first to rise. You will not be the last to fall." Kane's hands clenched into fists. Humanity had defeated the Zyric, but something else was coming. And this time, they might not be ready. The forgotten enemy. The universe was vast. Humanity had fought itself the new apex predator, standing victorious over the Zyric Dominion. But power had a cost. And now something older had taken notice. The vanishing colonies. It started with a single missing fleet. The TDS Vanguard, a Terran battlecruiser, was patrolling the outer rim near a newly established colony on Nova Centauri IV. The planet had been a symbol of humanity's expansion, a thriving world with millions of settlers. Then, one morning, it was gone. Not attacked, not invaded, gone. The colony, the ships, the satellites, even the orbital defense stations, everything had vanished. There were no distress signals, no wreckage, no signs of battle. Just an empty, barren world where a thriving colony had stood days before. The last transmission from TDS Vanguard was a single chilling message. They have found us. Then, silence. The investigation begins. Admiral Lucius Kane sat in the war room aboard TDS Revenant, staring at the report. Another missing colony. First, it had been small outposts, deep space mining stations, isolated research facilities. But now entire planets were vanishing. Earth's military command had scrambled to explain it. Some thought it was rogue factions, black market slavers, or advanced cloaking technology. But deep down, Kane knew the truth. This wasn't war. This was something else. Something that didn't leave survivors. A forgotten name resurfaces. While humanity debated the mystery, deep within the archives of the Galactic Council, an ancient AI system, long dormant, suddenly activated. Data scrolled across its interface as it accessed forbidden knowledge, records buried beneath centuries of classified reports. And then, a name appeared. A name that hadn't been spoken in over 10,000 years. The Harvesters. The AI hesitated, running 1,000 simulations, searching for probabilities. Then it made a decision. It sent a single transmission to Earth's military command. A warning. The truth revealed. When Kane received the message, his breath caught. The transmission contained star charts, ancient records, warnings written in a dozen lost languages. It told the story of a race so advanced, so powerful, that they had never been defeated, because there had never been anyone left to fight them. The Harvesters. They did not conquer. They did not negotiate. They consumed. Civilizations did not fall before them. They simply ceased to exist. Entire species were erased from history, their worlds turned into lifeless husks. And now, they had returned. The final warning. The AI's transmission ended with a message, one that had been left behind by the last known empire to face the Harvesters. It was written in a dead language, but the translation was clear. Run. Hide. There is no fighting them. Kane clenched his jaw. He had spent his entire life proving that humanity was stronger than the galaxy had ever believed. But now, he was staring at something that had already erased empires far greater than Earth. Something was coming. And for the first time in his life, he did not know if humanity could win.